What is up, everyone? This is my reaction to the negative review of Starfield. I am a big fan of Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Fallout Vegas. Loved all of them. Actually, I got into Starfield, and for some reason, after a few hours of it, maybe I was like 50, 60 hours into it, just I really didn't like it too much anymore. I'm going to definitely jump back into it and give it a try. Maybe I need a break or something like that. But it didn't catch me as much as like the Fallout games. I kind of want to see what this guy has to say and go from there. But let me know down below if you play this game or you stop playing a game, because I'm kind of interested to know. I thought it was just me at first, and some of my friends told me they stopped too, but revisiting it. All right, so without further ado, let's jump into it. I'm going to try not to stop as much as possible, because I know that could be annoying here and there, but let's check out this video and see what he has to say.
I like Bethesda RPGs. The first one I tried was Oblivion, and after Oblivion I tried Morrowind, which continues to be till this day one of my favorite games of all time. I think it's the best one that Bethesda has made in that style, and I have continued to enjoy Bethesda RPGs since that point.
Love them too.
I like Fallout 3, I like Fallout New Vegas, and I even like Skyrim. Even
Love
though
Skyrim.
in all of those games I had complaints, like a lot of complaints, they're still fun, they're strangely hypnotic. Even Fallout 4, which I didn't like, still drew me in for a long period of time before I realized, oh, I hate this game. The Bethesda RPG formula is so powerful that it took dozens of hours of playing Fallout 4 before you realized, oh, I don't like this is bad. That's why people that are defenders of Bethesda games, whenever you criticize it and you say, well, I played for 10 hours or 20 hours and I didn't like it, didn't draw me in, didn't like this, didn't like that, they'll be like, oh, 10 hours, 20 hours, that's nothing. The game just started. You can't judge on a Bethesda RPG game with only 10 hours of gameplay under your belt. No, that's ridiculous. It sounds silly to say, but they have a point. So to quiet some of those critics, let me inform you that my game time is about 100 hours now. In that playtime, I finished the main story and all the major faction quests, and started the game over several times, picking different skills to focus on each time. And my conclusion after doing that is that it's much of what I expected from a Bethesda RPG. And
one thing, guys, I want to see if he does complain about the melee weapons. I'm heavy in melee weapons. I love them, but I don't know what this game, all of them felt the same. I just stuck to, guns and stuff like that, There's nothing special about the melee stuff, and all the guns kind of actually felt the same. But let's see if he says that.
I think it's a lot better than Fallout 4, which is the only one of these games
I love Fallout 4, sorry.
So I had a lot of fun with it. You don't play a game for 100 hours and not enjoy yourself. But I have a lot of complaints.
Well,
and that's what this video is going to focus on. If you're looking for a comprehensive review that's weighing positive and negatives, you should go look elsewhere. Because I like to stick to doing the things I do well. And that's complaining. I'm very good at complaining. In all Bethesda RPGs,
I love this guy. He's good.
Version of the game is the version you buy at release. Starfield seems to have a bunch of planned DLC already, and they've announced that there are going to be major patches to the game as it goes forward. And so complaining is a good thing because it helps inform them on what needs attention, and universally agreed upon problems could be rectified in one of those patches or as a part of one of the major DLCs. Problem 1 with Starfield is the build and weapon variety for anything other than a ballistics playthrough. The weapon variety for laser weapons suck. The weapon variety for particle weapons also sucks.
Agree.
And the melee weapons have it worse than anybody. Now, I talked about the laser weapons in my last video, but the problem was a lot worse than I realized since that. To recap the complaint in that video, there are only 3 laser weapons in the entire game: the Solstice, the Equinox, and the Orion. Now you could bump that up to 5 if you include the Cutter and the Arc Welder. Now I'm not sure you should include them, but whatever, let's include them for the sake of argument. That's 5 total at most.
Okay.
With the overwhelming majority that you're going to see at any given time is the first 3. Now out of those 5, the Arc Welder, the Orion, and the Equinox all use the same type of ammo. They're all competing for the same resource. The Solstice, on the other hand, uses a different type of ammo, and it's the only gun in the game that uses that ammo type, which is something that doesn't happen to any other weapon in the game. It doesn't make any sense. The laser weapons are obviously neglected. When you look at the scope and variety of the ballistic weapon category and compare it to any other weapon category, you see how big the disparity is. I suspect that there's a good reason for this. I think that Bethesda is going to retroactively add a bunch of mid to low tier laser weapons in one of their DLC updates.
That'd be cool.
I'm betting in the first one that they release, Shattered Space, that will be about House Varun. It'll add more mid, low, and high tier laser weapons, maybe even some particle weapons, and then they'll do something similar to melee weapons in a subsequent update. We will talk about the melee weapons as well because they got it even worse. But first let me respond
there we go,
to some
see?
of the rebuttals I got to my last video discussing this issue. One of the common comments that I got was something like, "Oh, that just happened to you. You know, you just didn't play for long enough. I got tons of cool laser weapons. So many different laser weapons in many different varieties." And so I'll respond to that criticism here. You did not find a bunch of laser weapons. You didn't. Nobody did. What you found
I didn't get
was
any.
different varieties of the same 3 laser weapons.
Yep.
You found equinoxes, solstices, and Orions with different weapon mods or perks on the weapons. You found legendary versions of those weapons.
Yeah, yep.
And that's all you found. Because that's all that's in the game. I also got comments saying, "Nah, man, I found better weapons down the line, you know, those Veyruun weapons." And those are not laser weapons, those are particle weapons. But just to emphasize the point I'm trying to make, let's count them. Let's include all of them, because after all, there's some logic to saying that that's the case. The laser weapon perk that you can get does affect the laser part of the damage of the particle weapons. So let's include them all together. There are 2 particle weapon pistols, 1 particle weapon shotgun, and 1 particle weapon rifle. So that's 4. If you put the laser weapon and the particle weapon category together, even if you include the cutter and the arc welder, that's still only 9 weapons total. 9. For ballistic weapons, there's around 30, 3 times as many. There's a trend here. The ballistic weapon type has a lot of weapons with a lot of ammo types. There's a lot of options in it. And every other category is neglected, especially the melee category.
Big time.
The melee building in Starfield is just awful.
I agree.
Like, it's much worse than even what they've done before in their previous games. The weapon variety is again poor, with there being less than 10 melee weapons in the game. There's no two-handed weapons that you...
Sorry, guys. Let me know what you think about the melee weapons. I found them atrocious. I thought they were horrible in this game. Everything felt the same. But definitely leave a comment down below. I'm kind of curious to see if everybody feels the same way about that.
Can use. They're all stuck to 3-hit combos, 3-hit combo pause, 3-hit combo pause. The power attacks tied to these weapons suck. And not just compared to games like Skyrim that have a big emphasis on melee. They also suck even in comparison to Fallout, which also has guns. There was more strategy involved in Fallout Melee. One of the reasons is because the power attacks had a kind of lunging effect. You could cross distances and take advantage of an opening. And that's another problem. There's not as many openings in this game. Because in Fallout, you were constantly fighting animals. You were constantly fighting things that would engage you in melee combat. And that was the case even for the human enemies. Many of them used melee weapons as well. So there were a lot more opportunities for you to get good at engaging in melee combat. Figuring out when to block, when to step to one side or the other.
That's in New York coming out on me.
Power attack lunge to get in some damage. It wasn't, like, great. It wasn't spectacular. But it's a lot more than what we have in Starfield. In Starfield, you're not engaging with alien monsters very often. In my experience, the most you're dealing with is other humans.
Yeah.
There's very few quests that will put you in front of alien monsters that will engage you in melee
that's making
combat.
me dizzy right now.
There's some, but not nearly as many as you would in Fallout. So most of the time you're dealing with human enemies. Most of those human enemies are using guns. And even when you are facing an enemy that's also using a melee weapon, the melee combat is so simplistic that the strategy is the same regardless of what you're doing. It's run up to the enemies and whack at them and hope you don't die in the attempt.
Yeah.
Which can be a real pain if you're playing on the hardest difficulty. You have to understand, I'm not saying that the melee combat was a masterpiece in those Fallout games and previous Bethesda games, but it was a lot better than this. A lot of the times the enemies will run away from you in Starfield. They'll just start sprinting away from you. And I chase them, but I often can't hit them again while they're running away. And I would have been able to if I still had my lunge attack from Fallout. Another problem with the melee is that you can't modify it. There's no crafting associated with the melee weapons. It's like the whole thing is an afterthought.
Yeah, true.
There's no attack speed rating on the weapon to compare one to the other. And I think that might be because they all have the same attack
That
speed.
guy's out.
I'm not entirely sure, but they all seem to attack in the same way.
Yeah.
And at that point, why even have different types? Why wouldn't you have the light knife weapons attack faster but do less damage, and then the heavier weapons attack more slowly but do more damage? This is space. Why isn't there some kind of energy-based melee weapon? Why isn't there some that work like a stun baton and do EM damage?
I was gonna say lightsaber.
I thought the weapon variety was bad for the laser weapons, but if it's true that all of the melee weapons have the same attack speed, then I was wrong. The melee weapons have it the worst. Because that means that there's not 9 melee weapons, there's 1 with different skins. At that point, it doesn't matter if the dagger says it's different than the cutlass. If they swing at the same speed and there's no other variables to them, then they're the same weapon and one is just objectively better. Why don't we have two-handed melee weapons? Why don't we have high technology shields to go with the one-handed weapons? Why does everything seem to be so underbaked and give off the impression that they intend to do something about it in future updates? Here's a good example. Why can't we have an evil companion? Or at least one that's not such a goody two-shoes. All of the major companions are the ones in Constellation.
Oh, they were dry.
Those are the only ones you can romance. Let's list out their qualities for a second. You got Sarah, who likes being honest and being nice. You got Sam, who likes justice and being nice. You got Barrett, that likes it when you avoid confrontation and being nice. And then you have Andreja, who likes helping people and being a nice person. And that would be fine.
I didn't even catch that.
But at the moment, Constellation is the only place where you can get these important companions. You can hire some randos from bars, but that's not the same. Why can't I have an evil companion join me as part of the Crimson Fleet questline? The game lets me join the Crimson Fleet. It lets me be an evil bastard. It lets me take on quests to engage in piracy. But it doesn't give me a fleshed out companion to enjoy that with. And this next thing, this is the biggest problem I have with Starfield. This is the real one that bothers me. One of the biggest appeals I have with Bethesda's previous RPGs is that I enjoy exploring. The act of walking around and seeing things that catch your interest and walking over to those things. Like in Skyrim, seeing the temples carved into the mountainsides. I like walking around in these carefully crafted environments and letting the atmosphere wash over me. And much of the enjoyment from this kind of activity comes from the actual walking, from exploring, from physically moving from place to place. And in Starfield, that's gone. It's basically non-existent. Exploration in Starfield is done through menu navigation. You pull up your star chart menu, you pull up the system that you want to go to.
Yeah, that was another big gripe with me for this game was the navigation. Took me a while to get it. Maybe, I don't know, it was just something about it I didn't really like. I feel like they should have done something a lot better, a lot more interesting. It was just so blah, like kind of, I couldn't get into the whole navigation thing. I was hoping for something better, but didn't really show up.
And then you just fast travel there. Or even worse, you pull up your quest menu.
I hated that.
And then have it directly send you to wherever the quest wants you to go. I have no idea what planets I visited to do the main quests or the side quests. I don't know what systems those planets were on. I don't know what they were close to or far away from. And even if I touch down on a planet and decide to explore, there's nothing to explore. There isn't anything there. The areas on the planets that you visit will have some points of interest that seem to be handcrafted, but between them is like 5 minutes of procedurally generated bullshit. There is just nothing satisfying about exploring in this way. You know, I saw a lot of people getting upset that you couldn't actually go across the whole planet. You know, that there were invisible walls at certain points and you couldn't go any further past those points. And I just don't agree with that criticism because why would you want to explore the whole planet if the whole planet is like this? There isn't
flat
anything
rocks.
there. If anything, I wish the planet was a lot less explorable. I wish the planet's explorable area, which was much smaller. You couldn't just land anywhere on the planet. You could land on specific areas, and these areas had more tailored content. Like, I don't want to go into a cave and find some more mineral resource nodes. I don't care. I don't want to see another research tower and you kill all the ecliptic mercenaries in the area and you go up the tower and it gives you a little bit of information on the planet's resources. I don't care. No. So I completely don't understand people that were upset that you couldn't explore the whole planet, because that wasn't the problem. The problem was that there wasn't anything on those planets that were worth exploring. My impression of Starfield is that it needs a lot of work. I said this in the beginning, but all Bethesda RPGs are at their worst state when they first release. They get much better over time, after they've gotten all their patches, DLCs, and mod support. I expect I'll enjoy it a lot more once all of these things come out, but as it stands, I don't think I really had a great time with it. And my recommendation to people thinking about getting it is to wait.
It is free on the Xbox
that's the end of this video.
Store.
Please unsubscribe and unclick the bell notification. Hopefully you've been alienated, and if you haven't, I'm sure I'll get to you in a future video. Until then, thank you very much for watching.
All right, guys. So let me know if you agree with what he said, all that negativity, what they did with this game. I felt like it did miss, in my opinion. I did enjoy it up to a point, but you know, after a while, I felt like it got stale. Like he was saying, with certain weapons and just didn't do it for me. I will probably go backward after the patches and all that, but hopefully, you know, a lot of people remember this game and we'll come back to it and see all the patches and things like that. But let me know what you think, guys. Kind of curious to know everyone's opinion, because this game I felt guilty about kind of disliking it, actually, because I'm such a big fan of this genre. I love Fallout 4. I don't know what this guy's talking about. That was one of my favorite games that came out a long time ago. I don't know how many years. It might have been 5, 6 years. No, longer maybe. Fallout 3 I started with. I love all of them. But let me know what you think, if you agree with all this. I agree with a majority of what he said. And I believe they are going to fix it with a bunch of patches and the mods and stuff like that. But again, guys, let me know what you think. If you disagree with this, let me know why you disagree with it. And if you love this game. I know a lot of people have... my friends are split. Like some guys just dropped it and some guys are still playing it to this day. But I feel like, knowing me, I might forget about this after a while with all these patches and stuff like that. But I'll catch you in the next one, guys.